Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 66 RPG Think Tank, where we knock around all sorts of ideas for RPGs, including settings, monsters, adventures, anything to do with RPGs, really. We do this every week, so don't forget to blah, 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 blah. So don't forget to subscribe and speak English. Um, subscribe to our channel and you won't miss our expert use of the English language. So I'm going to quickly move on and pass it over to Mark, who's going to handle some check-ins.
Yeah, it should be pretty quick this week. There's only four of us. So, me. Successful week at work, really. Everything's gone very well. We've had a lot of positive responses from customers. And I've just had to put the last part of the next 2 weeks out on visiting sites and going overseas. So I'm going to Oslo next week and Italy the week after to go demo stuff and attend seminars and presentations and things. So that's gone pretty well. Just, yeah, that's okay. 66, still doing the bestiary. I believe about halfway through that now. It's been a couple of weeks, so by the end of the year we should have that all reviewed, signed off, and ready to go. And then we'll be thinking about Kickstarters and things like that. So watch this space. That should be good fun. Going to pass over to, well, not going to pass over to Josh. Going to ask Josh. Josh, how was your week?
I need to stop saying the phrase, "Oh, it can't get any worse at work." Oh, because it did. We had a system update on our antiquated system, and it didn't take, and then completely lost half the work we did Monday, which meant it was still down half of Tuesday. So for the last 4 days, I've been playing catch-up. It sucks. It's been awful. But brighter news, me and Alex have been working a bit more on 66 Starbound, as we've now renamed it to.
Cool, good to hear. Chris, what about you? Any more exciting events in your life and 66 in general?
Just very busy week. Lots of things happening. Can't say anything just yet until I've got some confirmation on various things, but hope to have some good news soon. Other than that, I haven't made anywhere near as much progress this week as I wanted to because I've been trying to write code and every 10 minutes I've had interruptions or mornings off doing stuff. So a bit of a frustrating week, but hopefully next week will be better.
Okay, cool. It's good to hear. Mysterious. So if we run out of time this week or run out of stuff to do in the time, we'll just spend half an hour guessing what Chris's good news is. And finally, James.
Yes.
What's up with you?
Mixed feelings this week. Today was my final day at CCFE, so I am no longer employed by the Atomic Energy Authority to bring fusion power to the masses. Whether or not this will improve their ability to bring fusion power to the masses or hamper it remains to be seen. Everyone was very sorry to see me go. They bought me nice things and there was cake. 66 wise, I've not been as busy, I'm afraid, this week. Mark's done a lot of the load share, but we're making our way through it and discovering that we need to make our monsters nastier because at the moment they're a little on the easy side to kill. So the only other thing that 66 wise is I finally, the playtest group I've been running with on every Tuesday night, so it finally made it to Troy. And while they didn't die horribly, they took a hell of a beating before they eventually brought down the Colossus and the Champions of the Titans. So I've got some pretty good feedback for the adventure, which may or may not form either a separate product or potentially a stretch goal for the Kickstarter. So 66 going well, and next Tuesday I leave for Hong Kong. So this might be my last meeting for a few weeks, so we'll talk about that on the checkouts.
Okay, well, it's good to hear. So, right, pass over to the person who's on the top of the note. It's going to pass to James, actually, since he's the one who's doing it, to talk about being alone in space. This is our theme, so what's gone wrong in space? So, talk to James about that. Go.
Go. I shall go. So, the theme this evening, as jumped on us by Chris probably about 48 or so less hours ago, maybe less than that, is that there's the basic topic. The characters are alone in their spaceship as they make a routine trip. What unexpected danger turns it into a nightmare of a journey? And when we say nightmare of a journey, we mean a role-playing experience for the fun and profit of the players, but not necessarily for the characters. So with that in mind, I'm going to move on to Chris, who's going to talk us about his unfortunate ship's crew, who appear to be losing time.
Yes, I wanted to do something which was subtle, which was slow and sort of moved away from some of the obvious tropes of this sort of format. And what I was going to do, I was thinking characters, you just sort of role play the journey a little bit, and then you just drop in little things that, people are starting to lose track of time. They'll be watching a holovid and suddenly they won't remember what happened in the last 5 minutes. It's the sort of thing you do with a book and things like that. So it's nothing to sort of really worry about. Or then it starts to get slightly more serious. They get up on time for their shift, but actually when they walk through the door of the cabin of the deck of the command post, they realise they're late and they've got no idea why it's taken them so long to get to their post. Cups of coffee, they pour themselves a hot cup of coffee, and the next moment it appears to be cold. So slowly the characters realise, or the players realise, they're losing time, or they're losing an awareness of the passage of time. And this is starting to get more serious. Bigger chunks are going, and it becomes clear that if they don't do something, they don't find out what's happening, they might just end up missing, their entire lives. So players have to investigate this and role play the whole situation. The GM can have some fun by editing the players. If they say, "Oh, I'll go and do that," and the GM just says, "Right, you've done it," but players got no idea actually what they did, and eventually they find out there's a time leech, a strange interstellar creature which has attached itself to the hull of the craft, and it's sort of sucking in the time. Obviously, the players have to get rid of it, but sort of like I'm wondering what happens when the players kill it. What happens to all that time? So sort of left it open-ended, and obviously a bit of a Doctor Who type episode. This one, I would say.
Yeah, I think it benefits really nicely from the idea of literally it's not so much that the players have trouble remembering things, but it's on the lines of literally time has been stolen from them. So I quite like the idea of essentially you could play around with the ideas on the concept of, well, how much time is being taken? Is it just the player's personal time, or is it the time of the ship? So that could be quite interesting. Josh has got a comment on the tone.
Yeah, it feels like it could swing either way. I mean, you could make this into either, as you said, a Doctor Who episode where it's kind of light-hearted, or you could go completely the opposite direction and have it the most grim, dark thing ever. So you start off in the shower, suddenly you're shriveled up like a prune, and so what happened? Or maybe if your time skips particularly fast, you forget to drink, you forget to eat, but you've utterly convinced that you've eaten. So suddenly you starving to death without knowing the why.
Which comes around to the point Chris is just about to make about danger.
Yes, Jocelyn makes a good point. It hadn't occurred to me. Actually, you can make some real life-threatening situations in space if you're not keeping track of time. So if the crew needs to do a spacewalk and the limited oxygen supply, and suddenly they're out there too long and racing back to the ship. So yeah, you can actually ratchet up the tension and make it more threatening by playing on those sorts of themes.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is you got to try and work out. I mean, does time carry on as normal, and then but the player's experience of it is just going through jumps, or do the players literally just stop absolutely dead for a period of time, and then carry on?
Yeah, my first thought was that it is just they're losing track of time. So they have done these things. It's just that the sort of like higher consciousness awareness of it is gone, and obviously that you'd have to sort of like do something where the characters have to be alone when this happens, which would possibly throw up some interesting dynamics on the ship, as the characters are forced to stay together. But I think you mentioned the idea that it's stealing time from the whole ship, and it happens to everybody, or some people are more susceptible to it, and then it sort of progresses. Then it's a very different threat.
Yeah, I mean, the nature of how the leech is feeding informs an important part of what the story you hang around it. Is it literally just stealing people's memories? Is it stealing people's time? Is it stopping everything? Because if you stop the entire ship, then normally they don't notice anything, because their entire local reference frame is only the ship, so there's nothing from there. But if you just steal people's memories, then a coffee cup goes from being full to being empty rather than full to being cold. So there's it's little subtle things on that. And Josh, you got a quick query on the leech size?
Yeah, you say the leech has attached itself to the ship. How big is this leech? Is it going to say 20 feet long, projecting a field the size of the ship, or could the leech be an incredibly powerful, like demigod, about knee big? And this is why it's been so difficult to find. This little thing is causing so much trouble.
Picking up on that, just before I go back to Chris to get his take, you could have leeches. So a quick little run thing I'm immediately thinking of is they're a cargo tramp freighter, they've got a certain amount of stuff on board, and it is literally just the players, because each of them has a little chrono leech on them.
Yeah, I hadn't really given much thought to the leech. I was thinking if it's going to be outside, it's got to be reasonable size to find. I was thinking maybe it was man size. But yeah, if it's sort of like something small, maybe there's something in the cargo which is leaking these things, or maybe the ship sails through a cloud of these things and they attach. And possibly the leeches get bigger. As they suck in time, they actually expand. Or suppose, given the whole thing about time and space and stuff, maybe we get more dense and actually start developing gravity fields.
I like the idea of them. They stay the same size, but they get denser. That amuses me more. So you'll find them when they get fatter after they've sucked a large amount of your personal time, not by the fact they've fallen off, but by the noise. When this quite heavy neutronium kind of grade leech lands on the deck plating after you've knocked it off. So that could be quite interesting. So yeah, any final thoughts, Chris?
Just stretching of that, yeah. I mean, possibly the players might notice the ship getting slower as time is converted into mass. The ship has more mass and therefore will slow down. So yeah, I think you're exactly right. You need to be really precise about what the time leeches do to time, and then you've got to make the rest of the story coherent with that. So that was, anyone taking this idea forward has to decide that.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Thank you very much, Chris. Mark, we'll move on to your idea next. Basically, the starship they've got isn't really that good.
Yeah, so I mean, this is one that kind of had like fairly good at the top of my head. I wanted to go some with a slightly more kind of dark comedy sort of themes to it, but it's essentially a world where everything's a bit crap, and the ship is crap, and potentially the people are a bit crap. So the thought was, it's the company doing their tramp freighter business. They've just bought a new vessel. It's bought on a budget from a place which is kind of built by lazy engineers and run by confused project leaders. And so the ship is ready and it notionally works. It's just been delivered and they're doing their first mission with this. So it's got the routine mission part of the whole thing. And they're essentially just trying to ship a collection of stuff from one place to another. And the challenges really come from essentially a group of people trying to do a job with bad tools and incompetent management, trying to look after them, and therefore it kind of gets very sort of dark comedy side of things, because I think that's probably how a lot of people feel about their work. But yeah, it's going for that kind of thing. So challenges are, for example, the AI. It's being copied over from a different type, so it doesn't recognise half the features of the ship, and the bits that are there, it keeps thinking there's bits which aren't there. And keeps throwing up error messages and keeps arguing with people, saying no, it keeps sending people if you get asked for directions, it sends you the wrong way because it thinks it's on a different type and tells you to do stuff which can actually damage you or the ship because it thinks that valve opens something else. Cargo handle equipment doesn't quite work. Engines are weaker than they're meant to be. And it's just stuff like that of trying to get the job done with that kind of situation. You have something, for example, they were encountering pirates and there aren't any weapons. There's kind of a box, or one of the things you have to do when the fight starts, you have to get all the weapons out for the packaging and run the first time setup and stuff like that. It's just random sort of irritations that get in the way of you kind of playing the game, kind of generate challenges and play that way. I've seen it work quite well as a con game, I think. So if you write up a bunch of fairly naff characters with a few hooks, people to kind of latch onto, I think that'll work quite well in
I
that kind of
could
environment.
easily imagine a lot of that will very much depend on the personality traits that the characters have,
Yeah.
because the actual process of essentially trying to fix this crap ship so they can deliver their massive giant boxes of, well, I imagine did they send it particularly if they're shipping something particularly inane, then it just
Yeah.
adds a measure of the grind of what it is they're doing. Yeah, like dog food, as Chris has just flagged,
Yeah, they're
or
just rubbish toys, little bobbly-headed toy things or something.
yeah, really, really crap toys. I quite like that idea. Yeah, a lot of it comes out of the fact that you essentially make sure the characters of the crew are just kind of useless, but they are approaching competent if it wasn't for their massive personality problems.
Essentially, yeah, when people actually have skills that they can use, you've got to have someone who's technical, someone who can do the AI, someone who can do this kind of stuff, but they're hampered by the environment they're in. And again, their own personality defects.
Yeah, I mean, particularly if you give a captain a major personality problem in terms of how he organizes people, then that immediately causes problems because they have no leadership normally. Chris, the goal of the game.
Yeah, so I was just thinking, yeah, I mean, once this sort of you sort of like get the novelty of the characters out of the way, and this sort of like, oh, the players realise they're fighting against this crap ship. Then where does it progress? There's got to be, be classic 3 acts. How does it develop?
Yeah, so you can keep presenting with more problems that they have to deal with, which are hampered by this kind of thing. You can give them other things to navigate. For example, if the world is meant to be a bit naff, so they get to their destination, but then they have to actually worry about how to get landing permission and getting things like that. Or there's some horrible bureaucracy done. They haven't got the forms in. I just kind of right off the top of my head here, but that's why I suggest it's more of a con game, because if you're running it for a few hours, for example, then you don't. Then that joke can last. But something which has turned out works pretty well is that, and kind of folds in well if we're talking about having the characters having personality defects, is we give them all personal goals. So there's a kind of a PvP-ish element involved in that, and that can generate hours and hours and hours of play entirely in and of itself. You can get the players kind of fighting amongst themselves as part of the being at work is a bit naff background.
Yeah, Josh, Coming Undone.
Yeah, what if in the final act the ship itself is just literally falling apart, and it's a mad dash to make sure you deliver the cargo, or you go down in a blaze of glory?
Yeah, so like that kind of gives you a very dramatic sort of final act. You're getting there, but it's a case of whether you arrive in pieces or kind of arrive with a few bits kind of still roughly held together with tape.
Yeah, I mean, you could, in terms of how you do dangerous stuff like this, I mean, you make it a routine voyage, but like you say, because you've got a treacherous AI and various people with personality problems, I mean, the PvP stuff will work quite well if you give each of the players different goals, i.e., the captain's goal is to get the ship there with the minimum amount of money spent, so he has no interest in trying to fix the ship, because that costs time and money and effort and spares. So you throw in a fair few things like that kick in. Also, I mean, there's nothing stopping you just throwing an asteroid shower at them.
Yeah, I was thinking something along those lines, actually. You can put them in a dangerous situation where they're kind of waking up and lights are just emergency light, and you go, oh, right, okay, now we're in a situation, and then you're getting on and doing it. Chris is going, quick, bots! Chris, bots.
Yeah, it just struck me this would make an excellent 66 bots scenario, which is slightly darkly surreal in its own right. But particularly because I thought, well, one of the things might be actually killing the characters could be quite interesting. And actually, if you have something like bots or clones or something like that, then you can kill the characters and they can still be in the game and just come back. So, a bot gets smashed by a bit of a ship falling off or by the computer buggering it up, and then it just gets rebuilt or downloaded into a new body. And that would add a different angle, because I'm thinking very much of the Paranoia role-playing game where you have the 6 clones and the paranoid computer screwing everyone up.
So this is what was just considered, just thinking on that, say you're not actually playing the crew per se, you're playing the cargo. And the cargo is a bunch of bots. So the crew have died in some accident or incident or something is going wrong, and you wake up in your containers, in your packaging, and then you have to try and work out what to do.
Oh, that'd be good, because then you could have really random, because the bots don't have to be anything to do with the ship. So
Precisely. And the bots
yeah,
don't know from the beginning the problems of the ship, the fact that it's naff, so you don't have to kind of play through, oh, okay, the computer's asking for updates. It's the ship is essentially dead. The bots wake up, extract themselves from their packaging, work out what's going on, put the ship on, talk to the AI, and that's when they find out the stuff's what's happening. It gives them duff directions to things and tells them to do stuff which can kill them. And if nothing else, as long as a bot dies, and the others can go back to the same crate and get another one out of the packaging.
yeah, I was thinking, yeah, if you need a reason for each of the bots to wake up, and it could be something like the bots being sent to a party, maybe like they're, the equivalent of bursting out of a birthday cake. And because things have gone wrong on the ship, they're late, so therefore they're automatically pre-programmed to burst out at the appropriate time, go ta-da, and find themselves in the hulking wreck of a spaceship.
Yeah, I'm thinking another one would be, yeah, the sort of kids' toys. We've got the blister pack. We've got a bit where you can still put your finger in and poke a button when it says stuff. One that's packaged like that, and a bit of debris has hit the button and woken the thing up.
I just like
I worked out what my next adventure is, what to finish 66. I'm writing that.
I just like the idea of these characters being because they are cargo, a completely inappropriate situation. So I love the idea of one of the bots not having hands; it's just got symbols.
Giant monkey thing.
just to really wind the player up. It's like, well, what can you do? You can make a lot of noise if there was any atmosphere.
Yeah, just as I'm doing a con game, I would dish out the character sheets randomly, but face down, and not allow them to turn it over until they get switched on. So they genuinely don't know who or what they are.
Yeah, I mean, you could quite quickly, particularly, we're talking about there being a crap AI, and a way you can have a lot of fun is if you give the players, here is your character sheet, and here's your personality. And they're entirely randomly organized because the crapshoot of an AI you've got on the ship has realized there's a problem and has got a load of AI programs in its system which is meant to download. There's the other part of the cargo is a bit of software. So it's just randomly downloaded a set of AI personalities into these hardwares. So the battle bot's wandering around in a princess.
Yeah.
And that gives
You have a lot of fun with that.
That gives you your objective, because obviously not only do they have to survive, but the bots have got an objective to get into their proper body. And so they probably have to get themselves killed, but at the right point where the next robot available is going to be the body they want.
Ooh. That's quite neat. That makes it a bit more complicated. So you have to establish somehow, let the players know what the list or the order of the next set of bodies coming out are going to be.
Yes.
About self-terminating.
I cannot self-terminate. No, it's just something to stop the player just going, oh, I know my AI is coming up, so I must obviously just die, and then just die. It stops them just committing suicide. They have to die doing something. They can't just... It's hardwired into them, no matter what the AI is they can't self-terminate. They have to be killed in a reasonably destructive accident.
Oh, yes. They can't just switch themselves off, they have to be destroyed. So that would be throwing themselves down the lift shaft, or electrocuting themselves, or getting someone to kill them, or something.
Competing to get the AI to give them jobs. You know, everyone's going to want to do the most dangerous jobs.
Yeah, you can have a lot. I think you're right, Chris. The trick to making this interesting is the fact that you're the bots, because then also you can add an extra level of futility to it if they're immortal, because it doesn't matter how many times they fail, there's always spares.
They'll just keep coming back and getting randomized body off the list. It's going to be quite interesting. It'll be a deviation from the rules in that every time the bot dies, they get a new character sheet, essentially, according to the new body. Or we split the sheets over two. You have the AI, which will be for example, your mind and soul cards, and then all your body and your skill cards come from the body you're in. So you kind of shuffle those about. It'll be a deviation from the rule, but I think one that suits the setting will generate good play.
Yeah, I mean, if you really wanted to play around with it a bit, rather than having a big cargo hold full of bots, it's the only bit of the ship that still works is the manufacturing. So it's got a quick bot build gig build rig, that was the cargo. But because you've got such a crapshoot of an AI, it's just randomly putting things in from a list that the
Just to
GM
try
has.
and come up with people. I mean, one of the nice bits about it is that your objective is fundamentally to get yourself delivered.
Yes.
You've got two objectives:
Yeah.
find out what you were meant to be doing, who's ordered you, and then try and get yourself delivered to them.
Yeah.
Here's the situation. This is what you want to do. So, for example, you can give all the players at the beginning an objective card. So they've got two each. One is to get delivered, and everyone's got that, because that then kind of drives what the whole group are trying to do. And then the other one is then a particular personal thing, such as make sure the others don't get delivered. It's a bit of a harsh one. But things like get yourself into this particular body, do this thing, do that thing.
Yeah. Fair
Or
enough.
say you know there's the customer so-and-so at number 2 Station Way, and they were looking for a security droid, and then you've looked at it and you've realised you're a monkey toy. So that then drives you to get a security droid body to then go and get yourself delivered correctly.
Yeah. With that, talking about AI as a crapshoot, Josh, the ghost in the machine.
Mine's not necessarily about the AI. In a routine hyperjump drive, the players start hearing noises coming from the ship, like knocks or groans that can't just be attributed to settling metal and whatnot. And as they travel longer on the journey, weird phenomena starts happening, like voices and people walking through walls. It's a literal ghost story on a ship. And eventually they're going to start getting more violent and bizarre unless the players can find out what's causing it. Now, I haven't defined what's causing it because I want that to be over to the games master, you know? I want them to come up with a suitably good reason as to what it is. It's partially inspired by a song called Carmen Miranda's Ghost is Haunting Space Station 3, which is literally exactly how it sounds. It's Carmen Miranda's Ghost is Haunting Space Station 3. It's the old ghost story on a ship, but in hyperspace where you can't escape. You can't just say sail to the nearest island because you're on a locked hyperspace course. You can't escape it.
So what would you imagine the... Okay, so yeah, as you said, your ship is performing a hyperspace jump, but say in our reality it takes like 2 or so weeks to do it. It's a long jump, vast distances, long time. So essentially the crew is trapped on board their ship with this ghost. So what do you think the crew's objective would be?
The objective to be is not die, essentially. As the days progress, the phenomenon starts getting lethal. Like, say, it goes from just a weird noise to an actual like poltergeist starting to attack, objects being thrown at them, guns going off randomly. Maybe even grenades start detonating towards the end of the second week. Maybe the couplings on the fusion reactors start getting a little loose. So as it starts pumping out more and more energy, those couplings are going to start getting more unstable.
Yeah, I think you've got potential there. I think you're right. A lot of the edges of the idea are not hemmed in until you decide on what it actually is doing the haunting and what its objective is. I think you could probably get a lot of mileage out of this if you put a measure of subterfuge in it, player conflict, particularly if a member of the party has a different agenda to the others. Yeah, vengeance, Chris?
Yes. I was just thinking it should actually work better in sort of actually a long-running campaign when the players have dealt with a few people, killed a few people along the ways. And if you make something hyperspace sort of like not, something extra dimensional, so it's a little bit weird, and maybe throw in a few background tales. There's always stories about weird shit in hyperspace, and it's actually the ghosts of all the people the characters have killed are just sort of like for some reason being attracted to. Was the Babylon 5 episode, Ghosts, Day of the Dead or something like that? They had the ghosts coming onto the space station. So something along those lines. The GM could nicely bring back some favourite enemies.
Yeah, I think that works quite well. You got a bit of potential there. Any more you want to say on this, Josh?
Yeah, the tone of this one, I imagine, isn't going to be light-hearted. This is yet again another bleak one. This is you very easily can die from some horrible extra-dimensional being, maybe, or you will run out of oxygen because there's a hole in the ship. There's going to be nothing nice about this. Maybe it starts off being relatively harmless, objects being moved, and downright to this crew member's been killed, this player character has been attacked. So it's just not a nice one. It's not designed for light-hearted campaigns. It's not for players who are faint of heart. It's a horror one through and through.
Yeah, I can see it. You've got to make sure that the level of danger is ramped up at the right rate. You don't want to do too much of a reveal on what the ghost or the haunt is about too soon. Otherwise, the players will just get a little bit twitchy, and they'll settle in a little bit too early and just end up getting on with it. So, thanks for you three for putting together some ideas on what we've got there. A couple ideas we didn't get around to looking at was Chris's idea of a stowaway. Oh, excuse me. The idea of a stowaway, where it might actually turn out to be the ship itself that's a stowaway, and the idea that I was posing the idea of Honey, I Shrunk the Starship. Now, I originally was just thinking on the ideas of the starship's really small, but then I think actually you get more fun in the fact that you're exiting from fold space, but the ship's not unfolded properly. It's the right size. You're all 6 inches high. And then you basically throw very general, standardized science fiction tropes of pirates or asteroids, but the players have to deal with the fact that they're only about yay high or so in a ship that's designed for 6 foot tall people. So they're a whole order of magnitudes and Imperial out from how they're meant to use the ship. So just getting anywhere is going to be hard work. So you have plenty of fun with that. So moving on, part 3 of our meeting, going over to Chris, is meeting planning.
Yes. Last week we had a great meeting. It was really good to have the guests on in the shape of Jared and Dave from Nightfall Games. And this is something I want to sort of progress and have more guests on. And I think, I think it's a good idea to try and make this a little bit more like a show, and we put more of an effort on starting on time and having a prepared line-up and, and more time to plan ahead for the topics, to be honest, as well. So what do you guys think? Just go for it if you got something to say.
I think the guest thing worked quite well. I'm going to posit it. It might be worthwhile us having a decision about whether or not we have all of us in if we have guests on. Rather than picking and choosing, it'd be easy if we essentially a guest every other week, perhaps, or once a month, maybe. But we rotate which of us is on with them as well. Because while I think it went really well, because there was quite a lot of us on, it got a bit crowded.
Yes, I think you're right there. What we'll need to do is plan our lineup a bit more. Maybe we have, if people want to come along, they can, but they know they don't need to present ideas on this particular week or whatever else. They're just sort of like maybe throwing the odd quick in here or there. So yes, I mean, how many people we have on will be an issue with the guests.
Yeah, because part of what we want to do with them is to really kind of showcase them a bit and their involvement with us, I suppose. Kind of a key part of the whole thing, but without crowding it, or also without them completely dominating the meeting per se. Because it doesn't necessarily need to be, and doesn't need to be the new guest show. Part of the point is we're still talking about our stuff too. When we do these kind of things, do we want to have sorry, a question completely disappeared from my head. It's something to do with whether we want to drive people on the basis that, hey, look, we can plug your stuff via our channel, or do we want to get some kind of reciprocal arrangement where they appear on us, on this thing with us, and talk about some stuff on the basis that at some point in the future we can appear on theirs and talk about their thing with them?
Yeah, that's a good question. We need to understand what we're trying to achieve, and ultimately what we want is to get attention for the 66 RPG. The advantage with having guests is that they're going to promote the show and our name to other people. Yeah. So it's a question of, if we sort of focus on inviting writers and other types, they're less likely to have their own shows or equivalent or podcasts or whatever for us to go on. But if we invite people who are running podcasts, they may be less creatively inclined, so that it might make their appearance weaker. So I think there's something to be balanced there. Josh, you've got a thought?
I have a couple of thoughts. One, it's to do with the whole register limited places point. Maybe if a person maybe won't be there to make a point, maybe they could be the note taker. They could just sit there and take the notes for the meeting. The second point is, I know we keep saying it, but I think it's worth starting to actively advertise for getting random newbies in. If we can't say get a guest for a few weeks or so, we're going to say, look, we want people who want to talk about role-playing games. Here is a good venue to do it.
Yeah, that's sort of like a different thing. Is we can have guests who are sort of like, want of a better term, names, and we can have guests as in terms of people who just want to join in, who are fans of a show, or have got something to say. I think you're right on dedicated note takers. I've also been thinking about how this actually goes ahead, because currently everything comes off my channel and goes into my personal YouTube channel, which is well, it's all 66 stuff, but it's still technically under my name, and it means that no one else can run the meeting. And I was thinking about switching over to running it from the page, which means obviously all of you can sort of run a meeting as well, but we'll have to sort of like start the channel from scratch. So some of this all sort of like ties in with exactly how we format the meeting. Jay?
Yeah, on the point you just raised, it might be worthwhile having a look at the YouTube dashboard to see if you can just transfer videos across.
I'm pretty sure you can't, but you can download them, reload them. So I think we can shift the content across. It's just a pain in the arse, from what I can tell.
What Josh was saying, I like the idea of basically just reaching out to the existing fan base that we have on G+ and otherwise, and just saying, hey, we've been doing this thing for a while now. We've still got plenty of good ideas. Do you want to come on and chat about your good ideas with our good ideas, and we'll see what we come up with. The only thing I would say to that is we've been doing this for a while now, and we worked out how we want to do it. What I don't want to do is invite someone on who is not compatible. With a name, so call them named guests, we are likely to get someone who has done something like this before. I'm thinking particularly Liz from Nearly Enough Dice is one we're thinking about doing. She will be fine with this. She knows exactly how to do it. Whereas exactly what Josh is going to talk about, is it worthwhile us talking to these guys beforehand offline to make sure that they actually have a clue, their speaking voice isn't fundamentally offensive, and we think they are going to contribute in some shape or form.
Yeah, I think that touches on a broader question of quality, and I think that's sort of what we want to do. Is I'd like to get this more quality. I see it something. I think it's a great format we've got here, and I think as a core team we've got some great ideas and people to bring ideas. So it's really about improving the quality and reaching a wider audience. So to answer your question, I think some of it is obviously people we know or whatever, so we don't auditions or whatever. But maybe sort of like reaching out, maybe doing some other things, running some games online and stuff like that, to try and find the sort of people to pull them in, and not an audition, but have a filtering process, you might call it.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I think we need to move on as we're running out of time. I think we'll sort of do some chatting offline about this and make a plan, because I'd like to sort of start the new year, go to the new year with a definite plan of what we're going to do over the next couple of months. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Josh now to do a 5-minute roundup of what's been happening on Reddit.
What's happening on Reddit? It exploded, and I love seeing this. I put it up yesterday. I think it was yesterday morning, and we've had yesterday morning. I think it was the night before. I don't know. It doesn't say. Point is, we had at least between 58 and 62 upvotes, and 13 odd comments, including some absolutely amazing ones. A big thank you to Alictor Law, Kenyan, Keldras, and Nilspills. You know, one day we're going to get really horrible names that I'm going to have to say online, aren't we? I'm not going to go into too much detail about their ideas, as we don't really have time to, but I will link them up on to the G Plus page, and I think if we make these notes available, there'll be a full description there, as well as a full link in the YouTube description to the thread in question. Brief sum up, we've had one about a big chill, which is more about global warming's causing the Earth to go colder. Dark Suns, which is about sorcery kings who just drained the sun of all its energy. A guy called Nil Spills has come up with great ideas. If you never find out what caused the apocalypse in the first place, say you grew up after the apocalypse, it's up to the players to discover what caused it. Maybe then try and find a way to reverse it, rather than, oh, we know what caused it, let's go find a way to reverse it. And finally, Keldras came up with Shadowrun / Earthdawn 3000 AD. The demons are back. I could say how he's written it, but I really don't want to make a fool of myself. So it'll be there on the description.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you, Reddit. I did like how we got a lot of good positive response for Mark's idea, which was the cooling Earth black hole disaster. So yeah, I mean, people on Reddit really like depressing, dreadful endings. So draw into that what you will. Okay, so let's quickly move on. Pluses and deltas. Mark, you're handling this.
Yes, I am. So I'm going to start with some pluses and deltas. Plus point. Really good to sit down and really like that idea we came up with collectively, building on the original thought of the crap ship, turning it into a bot setting where you're the cargo trying to get yourself delivered. I rather like the sound of that, so I'm going to try and put dibs on that so I can write it. Deltas. I was about to say the lack of people, but I think the group here actually worked very well. But I do understand that people are off because they've got other bits and bobs they need to be doing. Delta's possibly not enough time dedicated available to really go into the Reddit and kind of complete the loop on that and talk more about the social media response, because it seems to be going pretty well. And I'd like to kind of keep encouraging that by sort of keep giving the honourable mentions and giving us a bit more time to latch onto a few people's ideas and then develop them and think about them a bit more. But that's my opinions. Josh, what do you think? What's your pluses and deltas for this week?
Lots of great ideas being thrown around, and I think this would be a great opportunity to write just a small, like, one-shot book. Like, here's some ideas. Here's what you can run at a con. Here's some stuff for a one-shot. Deltas. It's starting to get a bit cold now, and I regret not putting the heating on. But on a serious note, lack of time. Still, it might be worth suggesting in the future that in the new year we stick to a strict "you have to be here at this time" schedule.
Yeah, it's a possibility, and we can discuss in future, I think, whether we want to stretch the time out to give us an extra bit just to kind of, which we can reserve for other bits and bobs. I think it's worth we can talk about that more in future. James, pluses, deltas, good point.
Yeah, pluses for me, really like the idea for a con game, or at least a short 4-hour adventure we've got with your taking Ben Lally bots and putting it in that your ship is really awful, you've got to try and survive and get yourself delivered setting. I think that works quite well. Again, it's as with all 66 think tanks, I always really just enjoy getting stuck in and doing it. Delta for me is this might be my last meeting for a while, because I don't know what my internet connection is going to be like in Hong Kong, and if I'm going to be able to cope with the time shift, because 7 o'clock here will be 3 in the morning in Hong Kong. So we'll have to wait and see how that pans out. I would really like to be able to say I will be here for next week, but let's find out. It will be quite early on a Saturday morning. But how long am I in Hong Kong for? I'm in Hong Kong until I leave Hong Kong, which is slightly disingenuous, but essentially there is no current exit date, so it could be 4 years. So it's a pretty permanent move. But yeah, so my plus is, yay, good ideas. My delta, I might not be able to make the meeting for a while. So that's me.
How early on a Saturday morning will it be?
Well, add 8 hours to 7 p.m.
All right. Okay. You said 3 in the morning. You mean really?
Yes, 3 in the morning.
Christ.
The unholy time. The dark and sinister hour where things that lurk and go bump go, dear God, why am I awake?
Yeah. Okay. And finally, Chris, what are your views on this week's meeting?
Very good. I think just echoing what someone else said about I think it was you, Mark, about the number of people. Yeah, it's always great to have a big crowd here, but actually it was nice just having the 4 of us where we could actually talk about ideas in more depth and spend longer on each one. So, yeah, I liked the number of people we had. That was very good. Delta, yeah, Sad Face J is going away. Though we do have people out at that sort of roughly time zone-ish thing. Rainer, who joined us for the playtest last week, he's out in South Korea, which is, 9 hours out, and I know we've got some people in Australia and things like that. So maybe we can get a Far Eastern chapter going, or Pacific chapter. So if you're watching this in that sort of like other side of the world, well, from my point of view, other side of the world part, and wanted to get involved, get in touch, and maybe we'll organise some games or something. So yeah, that's me.
Okay, I think we're done for Puzzles and Deltas then. So it's really signing off for Chris, really. Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Yes, so that's it for this week. Some wonderful ideas about what to do when alone in space. Next week topic will be... I don't actually know yet. That's one of the things I want to get sorted out with the whole planning ahead with meetings, is that I want to know what next week's meeting will be. So don't know, but watch this space. And that's a bit about it, really. So don't forget, subscribe and say goodbye, everyone, and have a safe trip, Jay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.